because hyperlocal is an area where voice-based search is sort of ahead of the, as a percentage of search queries. I have a feeling that it's going to be particularly important for location-based search. Have you guys started to sort of wrap yourselves around that to start advising clients on sort of chatbot visibility, for lack of a better term?
So yes and no. Like we've been thinking about as well, because I fully agree with you. Like things will change, and it's gonna have impact. So there's a few things we recommend our customers to sort of anticipate that. It's working to make sure that we have rich creatives, so rich, good photos, good videos on local profiles, and that they tell the story that we want to be told, and reviews. So growing reviews that was important. That is going to be even more important. And that's sort of the only, I mean, that's the only thing you can control, right? The rest, I mean, sure, you have your local landing pages, and you want to have a complete experience, and you want to do well on the review front, but as a local business, those are the things you can control. So we usually just double down if businesses come worried to us with this question, and we tell them, well, these are going to be the things that Google is going to use for that LLM model. Are you prepared? Are you doing what you should do? And the answer to that is almost always no.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the eMarketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Super excited to chat today with Michel van Luijtelaar, which I probably pronounced wrong, but I'll let you you'll correct me. To talk about hyperlocal marketing and analytics, particularly in an international context, because that's something we don't always cover here on the eMarketing Association.
Cool. Hi. I'll start with correcting the name. Yes, it's a tongue breaker. It's Michel van Luijtelaar, and the big advantage of having such a name is when I used to live in London and got a lot of cold calls, and usually those people wouldn't have even tried to read the name in advance. So when they picked up the phone and they were like, "Hello, Mr." and they would just allow me to hit the red button again and move on with my life. So
right.
That's the advantage. The disadvantage is
So I probably should have used my rusty German to try to pronounce it rather than my American English, so that would be closer.
The Dutch language sits somewhere between German and English, so both languages actually are quite easy for us Dutchies to master, which is great. Yeah, but let me do the intro. So my name is Michel. I'm the owner of analytics.co.uk, where we we support in-house marketing teams on a variety of challenges, mostly online marketing. So we do a lot of analytics, GA, Google Tag Manager, consent mode, but we also have a sort of a subscription service for maintaining tagging and GA4. But we do more than just that. So we also help customers really measure their marketing. So I used to work for the Google London measurement team. So I did 13 years at Google. So we helped Google London's biggest customers make sense of their online marketing and determine which half of their marketing was actually not working, which is a lot of fun. That's one side of the business, and the other side is just as exciting, if not even more exciting, is we're building a local SaaS, a local marketing SaaS tool aimed at customers that have many physical locations and want to grow footfall to their physical locations. So that's me.
Great. So on the physical locations, obviously here in the United States, there are lots of different ways in which hyperlocal retail businesses exist. They exist where they're just owned by a single entity. They are sometimes owned by corporate. And then we've got something that may not be quite as popular in Europe as here in the States, which is the franchise type organization, where sort of all marketing is really centralized, or the majority of marketing is centralized in a franchisor organization, which completely changes the dynamics of sort of how decisions are made around hyperlocal marketing. So I'd love to hear, how you're building your platform to deal with the nuances, not just in Europe, but potentially as you expand into the States, of sort of thinking through hyperlocal marketing, both from maintenance of all the information you need about that entity and its locations, but also allocation of budgets around and understanding what's working at the hyperlocal level.
Yeah. So we are a young company. We've existed for 4 years. We are a bootstrapped SaaS software business. So we have to make decisions, and if we build for everybody, we build for nobody. So we are very keen to really focus on a niche, and that niche that we've picked for our SaaS initially is organizations that manage their local presence centrally. So we do not have, you mentioned, for example, franchise. We do not, we have on purpose not built sort of a local, a local authority for making, for just managing, let's say, 1, 2, or 3 locations out of 400 or 500 or whatever. So we've built our SaaS tooling in a way where we keep the maintenance of local within the Google My Business platform, and we basically built functionality on top of that a central marketeer can add. So the central marketeer can push bulk upload videos, can work on products, bulk uploading services, bulk uploading photos, maintaining control over local reputation, I do sentiment analysis, understand where problems exist, and be fast in terms of addressing those problems, rather than waiting for the financial results to tank. And that's sort of the angle we've taken. We get questioned a lot from potential customers saying, "Hey, I would like to share local access with franchisees or with regional managers," yeah, we haven't built for that. We've
Right.
On purpose, and the rationale behind that is to keep things simple, as simple as possible, and be the best at a small niche, rather than being okay at a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that when you are centralizing local search and Google My Business listings management for large organizations that are typically corporately owned, review any flags from a review perspective are sort of a potential leading indicator of a problem at the organization level, with management at that organization. So it goes much beyond just making sure that the user finds everything that they need to know about that organization and its location and its hours, et cetera, and be able to consume the reviews for that location. But it potentially has some strategic value in a sense that you mentioned sentiment analysis at the local level. That potentially is a huge either way to know who's outperforming the mean and who's underperforming the mean at a corporate level.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing is local management that's not working, or a local working culture that's rotten. That's the most obvious example, but there are way more examples. So we have large retailers that learn through our sentiment analysis that actually has sizes are constantly missing for their products. And that's one that we recently sort of uncovered for a large retailer. I think that's something that's worth mentioning. I think the other one is that the sentiment analysis that we run, we also we have a very our philosophy is to keep things simple. So we provide like a weekly summary of what's being said about you and on sort of a top level. And then we pull out positive and negative topics. So the negative topics or the positive topics are in English. You can search for those within our SaaS, and you can dig up all of the reviews that mention that topic. So you can quickly see whether a topic is sort of across a lot of locations, or actually centered in a region or in a country, and it actually works across languages as well. So this might be less of an issue in the US, but if you're a large retailer in Europe, you're dealing with 10 different languages. So it makes reputation management more complex.
For sure.
Yeah.
Another thing that marketers here in the States want to understand, and I'm sure it's the same thing in Europe, is when they're spending media dollars, right, and they're driving their multi-channel, right? So you can order online, or you can potentially order in a retail store. Either you show up and you buy it, or in many cases you can add it to the shopping cart and have it ready for you when you get to the store. Or some retailers even use their local stores as the delivery hubs, right?
Yeah.
So all of those things have implications on one's Google My Business listing information, because store hours mean different things in those different contexts. So I'm wondering if you find that that you have to be somewhat creative when a multi-channel retailer is also simultaneously managing a retail footprint, and sort of what are some unique challenges that poses for the retailers?
So this is an area that's there's a lot of movement at the moment. So we used to have two types of retail customers. Three types actually. One that didn't think it was necessary to tell Google what products you were selling, which we obviously disagree with, but we still find them out there. It's hard to rank on generic search if you don't tell Google what you're selling. But believe it or not, that it still happens. I mean, the second group would be customers that we built manual product integrations for. So it's literally sort of designing top categories with a few products, deep linking it to the page. It's a lot of work, but if it stands, if it's there, it's there, and it helps with local discovery. It helps push competitors down the SERP. And then the third one that we had was integrating the Google Merchant Center with the local inventory feed, which requires a retailer to have a certain idea of what products are at what price and what quantity at what stores, and building a local inventory feed isn't that difficult. It basically pulls all the information out of Google Merchant Center, but it does require you to sort of know what's happening in the store, and there are still quite a few retailers that do not have the technical ability to do this. So it kind of created it gave the retailers with a decent IT infrastructure an advantage over let's call them the smaller retailers, or the retailers, the budget retailers, the retailers that don't have that IT integration. Google launched last year in April, I think, or was it April, March? At Google Marketing Next, they launched the Google Merchant Center Next. Initially, it was quite limited. Early 2024, Google has opened the use of that to basically anybody. So you can now integrate. You can now do a Google Merchant Center Next account. You don't face the same sort of scrutiny that you had in the Google Merchant Center. Google Merchant Center Next can almost scrape your data off of your website. You have that one central place where you can store products, and it can easily connect to Google My Business location groups. So we literally have set it up for somebody that doesn't even have a product page and it's working. And I think the last category where Google added it is for secondhand cars. So yeah, if you could do a club sandwich or a car in a Google Merchant Center, you can basically do any product. Those are big developments, and they kind of you have no longer an excuse not to tell a local consumer what products you're selling, and yeah, we're seeing adoption grow. There's still a big difference in sort of, if you look at Northern Europe versus Southern Europe, but it's one of the integrations that we usually help our customers deliver on, because we know it brings a result.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting here in the States, and maybe it's quite different in Europe, is we've got sort of the class of retailers that have the big IT departments and at least hypothetically know what the inventory levels are in each store. Obviously, the level to which the operationally they're accurate, that's a different issue. But at least the back end, central, inventory data is there, right, and is accessible in some way. Then you've got sort of the mid-sized retailers where they may be using a more, like, they don't have a custom POS system, and their POS system may not integrate as well into their back ERP, and so that to some extent for them to fix things is actually more difficult. And then you've got the newer wave of retailers that, for example, might be using Shopify end to end, right? Whereas Shopify can give you a POS system, I think, runs on a tablet, and it's, they've sort of almost like leapfrogged to the point where it's seamless integration between their stores and online and off, right? Whereas some of the mid-sized retailers actually almost have the same amount of IT cost as a big one to fix it, but the big one, it's only like 2% of their budget, whereas for the mid-sized one, it's like 7%. It's like, so it's a much more onerous reintegration or digital transformation. Do you find that that's also the case in Europe, that sort of the digital transformation switching costs are sort of getting in the way of nirvana?
Good question. I mean, I always think it's people. So I independent of sort of company culture or company history, if you have the right people and they are digitally curious, and they have the freedom to explore and test, we see digital transformation sort of progressing. I think the real big organizations where everything comes top down and I think those are the ones maybe where it's a little bit harder to get things to move, but we're not necessarily seeing the bigger ones. The bigger ones aren't usually the first movers on this front, but they are. I mean, at this time, if you do not have as a retailer a local inventory feed integrated with Google My Business, I'm not impressed by your setup. And we're talking retailers, but we have also the B2B service companies where we've created products for, and we've uploaded products, and the product would have been giving a training or had jobs and it can be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a physical product.
Right.
So if it's a club sandwich, a car, or a job, then it's open to anybody. It's the retailers that got the first opportunity to integrate this. We even have childcare actually, where we've integrated products for a large childcare organization. So,
When your team is wearing their agency hat, or the agency team's wearing the agency hat, and they're going in maybe as part of a pitch, or it's a fairly new client, you sort of just closed them, but you've had a chance to do some due diligence, maybe an audit, or either a deep dive audit or a surface audit. Are there consistent problems that you almost know you're going to see before you even get under the, into the company or into the details, where you just see the same problems over and over again? So there should be sort of low-hanging fruit that other people could learn from, where they're like, oh, I bet my company has these problems too.
Yeah. I mean, on local marketing, the problems are usually quite similar. So there's no ownership. That's usually a big problem. So at a retail organization doesn't know the online marketing, or the marketing organization is the online marketing organization is incentivized to drive online sales. I mean, this is a little bit old-fashioned. It's slowly dying out, but and then there's a customer service section of the business, or customer service team. They all three have their own budgets. Who's going to pay for this? Well, who's going to invest the time? So there is still a little bit of that. That's what you need top down for. So you need buy-in from somebody that actually cares about both online and offline sales. But a good setup is really crucial for running a good omni-channel Google Ads campaign. It is crucial for your local SEO, for local visibility. Your reputation is important for conversion. It's important for on and offline sales. So it's usually not a very hard sell. The interesting thing, I was talking about that actually with a colleague, is that we make ourselves obsolete, and we started realizing that actually today, where we are slowly losing our bigger service contracts, because they can now do a lot of those things themselves. And I think with local marketing, a lot of it is not rocket science. It involves a good reporting infrastructure. It involves people with the right incentives, maybe a little bit of software, or a little bit of tooling in order to drive some of the processes that are hard to do manually. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So we often work. We often educate staff at either agencies or direct customers, and have quite intense service contracts initially, and that's sort of slowly fades away, which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's here in the States, we've got the Peace Corps, right, that goes out and helps countries and cities, that don't have farms or wells or schools, and they tend to be very, very heavy from a labor perspective initially, and while they do their educating. And I think in theory, eventually the community should be able to sustain itself without Peace Corps help, but over time, a lot of the Peace Corps often can't leave entirely, right? So they maintain some footprint, some level of service. I think that's where a lot of these agency SaaS hybrids are going, is that they can't disengage fully, because the organization still sort of needs the external help. So perhaps that'll be where your business goes. One thing that we're noticing that is unique to hyperlocal here in the States, and maybe you're seeing it in Europe as well, is that because smartphone devices are increasingly being used for voice search, and those voice search apps are starting to include Gemini and other LLM-based chatbot searches, that adds a layer to sort of local visibility that is not a SERP, right? That is asking a chatbot, what's the best place to get a roast beef sandwich, near Piccadilly Square, right?
Yeah.
That is going to result in a single answer, and then it's a winner take all situation. And it
Mm.
doesn't typically have the same ranking factors as a regular SERP. And the LLM, takes into account a lot of things. It's not even always reproducible. If you ask it the same question multiple times, you sometimes get a different answer. So
Yeah.
a lot of the marketing teams that are either the SEO teams in house, but often, even all the way up to the CMO are starting to say, well, wait a minute. Like, I'm not sure the SERP is going away entirely, but I also need to make sure that I improve my visibility within an LLM powered chatbot. And I've certainly got my own opinions about how to do that. And we're running some very interesting experiments about how to do that. But because hyperlocal is an area where voice-based search is sort of ahead of the, as a percentage of search queries, I have a
Mm.
feeling that it's going to be particularly important for location-based search. Have you guys started to sort of wrap yourselves around that to start advising clients on sort of chatbot visibility, for lack of a better term?
So yes and no. Like we've been thinking about it as well, because I fully agree with you. Like things will change, and it's gonna have impact. So there's a few things we recommend our customers to sort of anticipate that. It's working to make sure that we have rich creatives, so rich good photos, good videos on local profiles, and that they tell the story that we want to be told. And reviews. Growing reviews that was important. That is going to be even more important. And that's sort of the only. I mean, that's the only thing you can control, right? The rest. I mean, sure, you have your local landing pages, and you want to have a complete experience, and
Mhm.
you want to do well on the review front, but. As a local as a local business, those are the things you can control. So we usually just double down if businesses come worried to us with this question, and we tell them, well, these are going to be the things that Google is going to use for that LLM model. Are you prepared? Are you doing are you doing what you should do? And the answer to that is almost always no. So yeah, so one of the things we do, which I'm proud of, we've developed a little bit of software where we use we use the Google tools to do 100 or 200 searches in and around the vicinity of a location for the primary category or for a top keyword. And we record the average amount of reviews that the number 1, the number 3, and the number 5 has, to compare that to how our customer is performing on both the number of reviews and the height of the star rating. And that gives an interesting picture about are you doing well in the direct vicinity of your stores against your competitors. So that's one that we're telling people to focus on. I mean, asking for longer reviews, asking for reviews with photos. I mean, I think that's going to be some of the inputs that Google is going to use. And then it's always going to be a mix, right, between
Yeah.
what Google collects locally from trusted users, what you put out there on your website and your local listings. But we're following it. I mean, there's a lot of testing that in Europe. We have the Digital Market Act at the moment as well. We have a lot of focus on on privacy. So Google just launched the consent mode V2. So there's a lot of changes, and the generative AI is going to come on top of that even. Yeah.
Yeah, the early evidence that from the experiments we've been running, and I think the jury's still out. We're not entirely sure, but the early evidence seems to point at syndicated content and digital PR being additional influencers that
Okay.
will improve the odds that the LLM chooses you over your competition.
Yeah.
What's fascinating about that as it relates to what you might advise to clients is it's not altogether different than the kind of advice you would have given with regards to sort of owning the SERP in a barnacle SEO manner, right? In other
Yeah.
words, having your content that you've worked so hard to create not live exclusively on your domain and exclusively within your Google My Business, but also within other business directories, within LinkedIn, within partner organization sites, your suppliers or your customers, to the extent that you can co-create content. That co-created content, reinforces the LLM.
Okay.
As to whether or not you can actually then train the LLM to prefer, that's again something that's an interesting gray hat
Yeah.
initiative that is being tested not only by my team but by others as well. So
Yeah.
the good news is that we're seeing that opens up budgets that might not otherwise be open up, because you can get into public relations budgets and social
Yeah.
media budgets, right?
Yeah.
Because it seems like the social media, the gated social media that can get crawled and are being allowed to get crawled by the LLMs, they also seem to have some influence. So there's like double benefit to being, active in social media, because, you have followers and profile pages, but you're also potentially feeding LLMs at the same time. So it really
Yeah.
is sort of unifying all of digital marketing together on the earned and owned media side of things.
Yeah.
Whereas SEO used to be thought of more as in a silo, I feel like now it needs to sit next to PR. It needs to sit next to social as well as owned media.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the cool thing is, I mean, in the US, or the cool thing for you guys in the US, it's usually that's why Google tests first. So Google would roll it out in the US, then the other big English-speaking countries, and then we're sort of in the second group with the big European languages, Dutch,
Right.
French, German, Spanish, Italian. But yeah, I fully concur with what you're saying. I mean, it's Google will need to find trusted sources. I think they've recently also announced they would what is it again? That platform where you can ask questions and answers.
Probably Reddit.
Was it Reddit? I think it might have been Reddit. Right?
Quora and Reddit, I think, are doing
Two
licensing
ones, yeah.
deals. Yeah.
Yeah. So did one of them not sign a deal with Google recently to let Google sort of index all of its questions and answers? So
yeah, I don't recall which deals got done and which didn't, but I think certainly content owners, even if they don't necessarily own copyright, but certainly may own the access to that content, are suddenly realizing that that content has value above and beyond its traditional editorial values. So that changes the game. It does also bring up a very interesting question, which just popped into my head as we thought about the multi-language element of it. And LLMs are particularly good at translation. And obviously Google's been working on translation for ages because it's a value add to the users. So I'm wondering if when they roll out Gemini, across Europe, for example, as fully functional, whether or not it will use translations about reviews in other languages, for example, or content in other languages about that hotel in Amsterdam, that to influence the answers about that hotel in Amsterdam, right? Because Google could sort of unify that all into English and then analyze it as English, right? Or unify it around the core language, Dutch or German or French or whatever, where it could unify the content regardless of what the original language was, right? And look at sentiment or positivity or information about that product or service, regardless of the original language, which just really is mind-blowing.
I think Google is already because we for our sentiment analysis we mostly use Google Cloud services. and it's I think it's already doing that that translation. I think also for reviews. When you open Google Maps and see a hotel in Amsterdam, you will see the reviews in English. So I think so. Some of that is already happening. Whether they would put more weighting on what a Dutch person thinks about a hotel in Amsterdam versus what an American person thinks about a hotel in Amsterdam.
Right.
That's an interesting one, you know. Yeah.
And personalizing the search, if I ask it, whether you ask it, right? There's hyper personalization of the result as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the. I mean, I worked as a measurement specialist, and there was a time when Facebook was competitive in the UK. I mean, it's with Facebook ads, and one of the things that we would explain to marketeers was that actually, Facebook knows what I want to tell the world about myself. So whereas Google knows. No, Google knows my wife would be pregnant before I do it. Google knows what I actually read. Google has so much contextual information about what I like and what I do that that personalization is going. I'm excited about that. I think that's great. Yeah.
Well, clearly there's huge opportunity within the industry. The player, the dominance of certain players may start to wiggle around a little bit. There's a bunch of rumors around there being, shakeups at Google potentially coming down the road, as well as products coming out at Google and at Apple over the next 3 to 6 months that are sort of landscape changing product changes. So it'll be fascinating to watch.
We did. We did the first, and I think it's global. I mean, the biggest comparison between what Apple Business Connect does for European businesses versus what Google My Business does. And if you look at sort of Apple Maps versus Google Maps, I mean, Apple Maps is now pre-installed on the iPhone. That makes an impact, and you've got a young generation that didn't grow up with Google Maps. That probably likes the relatively uncluttered experience on Apple Maps. So we actually started when Apple Business Connect was launched. We started exploring, and the 2023 sort of analysis for 1,000 EU locations of Apple versus Google. We saw it slowly, Apple Maps versus Google Maps, I should say. We saw it slowly rise from 6.5% to a small 10%, like 9.5%, which 9.5% is a decent chunk. But then if you take impressions on the SERP in that, then I mean, the Google is still Google with 99% and Apple 1%. So
right.
We can talk about adding Bing Maps and Apple Maps and we tell our customers to optimize the hell out of Google before thinking about anything else. And it depends a little bit. If you're selling vegan sandwiches in European capitals or in San Francisco and New York, sure, the story might be different. But for the vast amount of businesses out there, we still think it's going to be Google that's driving the results, and I don't see that changing in the near future. There's a quote that I really like, is that people usually overestimate what will change in 2 to 3 years, but completely underestimate what will change in 10. Let's see. I might be very wrong in 10 years, but I'm pretty confident about the next 2 years.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure chatting about local search and SEO and the evolution of all those things. Look forward to continuing to follow your journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.